But in our first hour, I want to open with the story of the protests in Washington, D.C., the astroturf nature of it, and why the reporting is the way it is. This is the thing that I find most fascinating. I watched Stephanopoulos, whatever his show is called. I watched Face the Nation. I watched Meet the Press. I watched, I consumed as much media as I could this weekend about this AstroTurf, corporate paid for, people bussed in. There were hundreds of buses that were provided. Who paid for these buses? This phenomena in Washington, D.C. this weekend. I was amazed by it. Now, I remember back in 2005 when over 100,000 people in Manhattan, 100,000 people showed up and marched through the streets of New York. And the New York Times reported it on page 8 as T.J. Wash over in Democratic Underground today posted some of the photos and notes. In New York, there were easily 100,000 people protesting the war. I was actually in New York that time. It's on the YouTube. It's on YouTube. It's on YouTube someplace. I spoke in a church along with a bunch of other anti-war protesters at a gig along with Mark Crispin Miller, actually. He and I were hanging out together that day at a gig that was put on by World Can't Wait and The War Now. And the church was standing room only. I mean, it was packed to the rafters, and the New York Times chose to report 100,000 people in the streets of Manhattan on page 8. As T.J. Wash notes, underneath the ads for Preparation H and Viagra with a 2-sentence blurb. Now, that was the anti-war protest. But now we've got these anti-government health care protests. And, first of all, 2 observations. The first is I thought that the most effective pushback was from the Billionaires for Wealth Care. And their website, Billionaires for Wealth Care, as in healthcare, only replace the H with a W. Billionaires, F-O-R, Wealth, W-E-A-L-T-H care.com. Billionaires, they showed up and they had these signs like, privatize Medicare now and no government health insurance, end Medicare and things like that, more profits for the health insurance companies. I mean, they were just doing a great job. And they've got the pictures, and you can see it all over at their website. But what I found particularly fascinating was looking at the signs. And you get it that these are not, unlike the anti-war protests, where the signs were clearly made by people in their back, in their bedroom or back, in their kitchen, back room, whatever, with a felt pen. These signs were professionally made to look amateur. They were designed to, the choice of typefaces, the choice of size of type, the choice of colors. They were all designed to be very photographic and very telegenic. And to look like they were done by the individuals who were carrying them. And in fact, after the protest, there were wastebaskets full of the signs, as well as American flags, that the protesters left behind. The protesters were handed these signs. People who showed up were handed the signs. They were told to spread out as they marched down the street so that they looked like larger numbers. Now, there's a reason for this. This is the ad that CNN refused to run. And this is the key to the whole thing. This is where it all begins and ends. Listen to this ad that CNN refused to put on the air.
Why do the health insurance companies and Republicans want to kill President Obama's health insurance reform? Because they like things the way they are now. Ed Hanway, CEO of insurance giant Cigna, makes $12.2 million a year. That's $5,883 an hour. Ed makes more in one day than the average worker makes all year long. Now Ed's retiring with a $73 million golden parachute. The Republican prescription for the health insurance crisis? Be as rich as Ed. You'll be happy too.
Yeah, just be as rich as Ed. Or be as rich as Stephen Hemsley, the CEO of United Health Group, who has $700,000 in compensation from the last 5 years for his work. So I went over to theyrule.net, one of my favorite websites. It hasn't been updated in a few years. These stats and these names are effective as of 2004. The fellow running the site, I apparently got a job or something. I'm not sure. I corresponded with him back in 2004, 2005. In fact, we had him on our show. And I've got to track him back and find out what's going on. But as of 2004, here's where it stood. You can, on this website, theyrule.net, you can bring up any two corporations, and you can say, find the connection between the two. So I was wondering, what's the connection between United Health Group, who owns the Lewin Group, which they were quoting on Face the Nation, as I recall, or Meet the Press, which was one of the shows. The Lewin Group, this healthcare analysis, right? It's owned by United Health Group. United Health's CEO, $700 million for 5 years. His prior CEO, Bill McGuire, $1.7 billion for 10 years of work. This is a company that defines robber baron. Now, obviously, they're not the only one, but I thought, what the hell? Let's look at United Health Group and compare them and see how they're connected to some of the media companies in the United States. So I pull up Time Warner and United Health Group and say, are these two companies connected? Time Warner, they own CNN, and they publish, I don't know, thousands of magazines. Well, let's see. United Health Group had, again, these are as of 2004. The names may have changed, but today you could find similar connections, I'm sure, in all cases. So we'll go with the 2004 stats. United Health Group had on its board of directors a guy by the name of James Johnson, who's also on the board of directors of Target. And Target has on its board of directors a woman named Ann McCauley, who's also on the board of Fannie Mae. And Fannie Mae has a fellow by the name of Franklin Raines on its board, who's also on the board of Time Warner. United Health Group to Time Warner, 3 steps. How about to Walt Disney? Walt Disney owns ABC News, or did last. I may be wrong on that. There may have been an acquisition in the meantime, but what the heck? Let's do United Health Group to Walt Disney. United Health Group has Thomas Keene on its board of directors. Yes, that Thomas Keene. He's also on the board of Aramark, who has Ronald Sargent on its board of directors, who's also on the board of Staples, who has Greg Mitchell on its board, who's also on the board of Walt Disney. 3 steps of distance. United Health Group to Viacom, which owns CBS. Thomas H. Keene on the board of United Health Group. He's on the board of Aramark, which has Joseph Newbarger on its board, who's on the board of Verizon, who has Ivan Seidenberg on its board, who's on the board of Viacom. Well, what about the New York Times? United Health Group has James Johnson on its board, who's on the board of Target. Solomon Trujillo is on the board of Target and PepsiCo. PepsiCo has on its board John F. Akers. He's on the board of the New York Times. You see how this works? General Electric, NBC, has Ralph S. Larson on its board. He's also on the board of Xerox. Xerox had on its board Ann McCulshy. She's on the board of Target. Target had on its board James Johnson. He's on the board of United Health Group. Starting to sound familiar? I mean, you could even connect them to, like, Walmart. Walmart has Roland Hernandez, who's on MGM Mirage. Terrence Lanny is on MGM Mirage. He's on KB Home. KB Home has James Johnson. He's on United Health Group. It goes on. I mean, it's just actually 2 steps from American International Group, AIG. Why is AIG getting this coverage? AIG, Ellen Flutner, J.P. Morgan Chase, William Gray III. He's on both boards. He's on Viacom's board. 2 steps of separation. So what I find interesting is that nobody is reporting to us who's behind these groups, because it's the same companies.